All right. So this is all about cracking the code. That's what we're going to cover today. The first thing that I want to tell you is let's just all take a collective breath together, okay? Because whether you're techie or not, this whole thing is really kind of freaking people out. So let's just take a minute, take a breath. The purpose of this workshop is to give you that 10,000 foot view of what's happening. And then we'll dig into a little bit about what you need to do and why and all of that. Okay. But I'm not asking you to take out your tech tools. This is just for information. I've got some handouts that I'll share the link at the end. So don't panic about that. But the teacher in me, I don't want to give you the handouts because then you're not going to pay attention to me. All right. Does that make sense? So, give me a little thumbs up in the comments, all that kind of stuff, so that I know that everybody is on board here and we are ready to go. So we've taken that deep breath and counting to 10, all of that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. So let's jump in. Let's have a little background here first. What has started all of this? Quite honestly, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about should have been in place in order for you to get the best email deliverability. But there's been a few things that have changed on the back end, especially with Google and Yahoo. And so basically, they've made some changes. And if you don't implement those changes, some not so happy things are going to happen. We all struggle right now with, trying to get our emails in the inbox and not in the spam. Well, guess what? If you don't tighten up some of the back end security pieces by a certain date, I don't even know what the date is, but it's coming up soon. Guess what? Your emails may not even get delivered. They may not even get into the spam folder. So that's why everybody's talking about this. Everybody's rushing around saying, what do I do? All right. So that's the background on that. And again, as I mentioned, what's the repercussion or the consequences? You think you're having issues now with emails going into your spam folder. It will continue to get worse. And all of a sudden your emails might start bouncing. And here's the deal. I want you to think about if the best analogy, I don't know if this is a good analogy. The best analogy I have is when you're at a mall and you're walking by those middle people that have those little booths. And, if you make eye contact, they might say hi. But there's one particular vendor, I mean, they almost like chase you down. And then they're kind of insulting if you don't even look at them because they want you to try their perfume or whatever it is. Well, if you're in that mall very long, what's going to happen? You don't even walk on that side anymore because you're so irritated. Well, if you don't get your email things set up properly on the back end, the servers on the other end are like, nope, we don't want to deal with you anymore. So we're just not even going to deliver. So that's super simplified, but just to kind of give you the big picture. And what has really brought all of this to the forefront? We're all entrepreneurs, we're all salespeople, all that kind of stuff. With the advent of AI, all of this kind of stuff, the bots, guess what? Your inbox is getting busier and busier. And, as they always say, the more crooked crooks get, then you have to build all these back end things. And I'm not saying that the emails are crooked, but here's the deal. The more that the servers on the back end get hit with emails over and over and over, they're going to start tightening down the gates. So that's why it's super important to pay attention. Beth said she thinks it's the 24th, the deadline. So things are coming up quickly. So what do you need to know so that you can get ready? We're going to deconstruct, so to speak, what I call the alphabet soup here. All right. So let's dig into this. And the reason that you at least need to understand what these things are is because if you're setting up the back end, or even if you have somebody else set things up, you want to make sure that things are configured or set up correctly so that the emails can flow. All right. It's kind of like when you move, especially if you move to a new country, things are different as far as the postal service and trying to figure out how to set up your email or your mail system. So it's the same thing with our emails. So let's talk about the first one, DKIM. Anybody heard of this one before? Put it in the comments. I think there's a couple of my tech gurus on here that have probably heard this before. So DKIM, the fancy description for the acronym is Domain Keys Identified Mail. What in the world does that mean? What I want you to think about is basically this is like that seal. Remember those wax seals that you could put on the envelopes and then, stamp your initials, and way back, way back, that's how when mail was like hand delivered, that's how people would know that this is authentic. Okay. So when an email is configured correctly with the proper DKIM, it confirms to the recipient that this email hasn't been tampered with during the journey. So it's that seal of authenticity, right? So letting the server know that they can trust that email, right? Does that make sense? So give me a DKIM. Go ahead and type in DKIM in the comments. Just that you may not totally understand it, but that we've gone past that one. All right, let's hear it for all the DKIMs in the room. Then the second acronym that you might have heard people talk about is what we call the DMARC. And what does DMARC stand for? It's the domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance. Whew. Try to say that 5 times fast. So what's another visual that you could think about with this? It's your email bouncer. Okay. So it is a strict gatekeeper for your email. And when your email arrives to the destination, the DMARC checks that signature from DKIM. Okay, so it checks to make sure that the sender's address is correct. If everything passes, then it allows it to go into the inbox, hopefully without any problems, right? But if things don't match up, then it's like that bouncer saying, nope, sorry, this is a fake email. Not going to let it through. So what's important about this is it protects your email reputation, okay? Because again, you don't want to be known as that slimy emailer that sends out, that collects emails that you buy them, and then you're just blasting everybody. Okay, so it protects your email reputation, and it also prevents fraud and the phishing that goes on, and we've all had those, right? Where it's like, oh, you need to click here and give us your social security number because your records aren't straight, something like that. Okay, so the DMARC is very important, and it really is like your best friend, right? Is that making sense? So give me a D mark in the comments so that I know that you're still with me. So it's not too scary, right? We're just understanding the role or the job that these little guys have. And then let's talk about the next one. And this is SPF. And what this is the Sender Policy Framework. So the best way of thinking about this, it acts like as a whitelist for your email sending address. So, we've all seen, somebody standing at the gate with the clipboard and they're checking, is your name on the list? It's that guest list for can't even talk, for that exclusive party. Okay. So you, as the host, you get to come up with this list of approved senders. So excuse me, when an email ends at the destination, the email server on that end will check this guest list. And if the sender's IP is on that list, it's like, okay, they're in and they're allowed to go in. But if they don't see it on the list, then the receiving email is thinking, oh, wait a minute. They're not on the guest list. These people are trying to crash the party. So we're not going to let them in. And so then what happens is that email will either get rejected and the email server will say, nope, get away from me, or it will mark it as suspicious, saying, you know what, we don't know who these people are and they're kind of sketchy, right? Is that making sense? So those are the three big acronyms that you're going to hear. So give me an SPF in the comments if you're with me, if you're still with me, if you haven't had a heart attack. All right? You guys are doing great, by the way. Now, let's talk, about the next one here. And this is DNS. And let me I don't always see all of the comments. Okay, great. Good. I see everybody's pretty much following me along. So good job. And thank you. Somebody said good analogies. Thank you. Okay, so DNS, you probably heard that term. It's a more common term. And this is domain name system, or domain name server, sometimes it's called. So it's just like that phone book, back in the olden days when you pulled out the phone book to look up somebody's phone number and address. The DNS helps this huge mass of websites and computers to find one another. So it kind of ties in the back end actual little IP address with the name, so google.com, if somebody types that in, the DNS is like the map director, and it can send people to the right place. All right. So that's DNS. Now, inside of your DNS manager, you have to set up the directions for all of this alphabet soup that we've just talked about. Okay. And usually you will be required to set up what's called a CNAME and a text record, or a TXT record. Okay. So just think of it as somebody sitting there writing some special notes and directions to your phone book. All right. So that DNS, when you create these CNAMEs and these text records, it's just extra instructions. And they're kind of like shortcuts and redirects sometimes. Okay. So it just helps the DNS servers figure out where to go and all of that kind of stuff. And it's not confusing, but one more layer, you have the place. I didn't create a slide about this, and I should have. You have what we call the domain host, the place that you actually give money to every year to reserve your domain name. So my domain, one of my many domain names, I'm a domain name aholic. Raise your hand if you have a collection of a dozen or more domain names. Okay, put that in the comments. Wherever, and there's lots of places you can buy these domain names. So that's would be your host. And the hosting services have a DNS built right into it. But sometimes people will use a third party DNS system like Cloudflare. And I usually recommend to my clients that they use Cloudflare. Cloudflare is free. I mean, they have a paid version, but it's free. But it just has a few extra bells and whistles. And all of these policy things are in the same place. They're all set up the same way, all of that kind of stuff. So sometimes you will hear people talk about Cloudflare. Cloudflare does a lot of other things too, but they have a very robust DNS like domain manager for you. Okay. So we're not going to go too deep in the woods. Just stick with me. Beth says she's a domain hoarder here. That's right. And just a little side note, I don't know when it was, but I decided to let go a few of my domains. You pay for them and you never do anything with it. And it was like giving up your firstborn. It's like, oh, do I really want to let go of this? Even though I've had it for 5 years and I've never used it and I probably won't. We just get attached, but that's a side note. All right. So if you want, you can put in the comments if you're using Cloudflare. There's no shame. There's no judgment. There's nothing. It just helps me know if you're using Cloudflare. It's just a little random poll here, I guess. Just trying to take that. Okay. Now, all right, kids, we're going to pull out the big knives in the kitchen. So don't panic. Again, if you're not a techie person, don't stress about this. The purpose of this workshop is just to kind of give you a sneak behind the curtain so that if you're doing it or if somebody's talking to you, it makes sense. So remember, I said you have to go on your DNS and you have to set up these directions for your SPF record or that note that you're putting on the DNS. With SPF, you can only have one. If you have more than one record that says SPF, it will make all of them fail. So sometimes you might think, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to jump in here and set these things up. And then maybe somebody else does it for you and they don't really know what they're doing either. Or maybe you've done it multiple times thinking, okay, I need it one for each one. Just file this away. You can only have one SPF record. And what does that record look like? This is a good example of what it looks like. All right. So the V means the version. Right now, there's only one version. So the version SPF 1, and then include sendgrid.net. The little squiggle mark is called a tilde. It's right below normally your escape key, in case you wonder where that's at, and then all. So without going too deep into the woods, basically it's saying, okay, for my SPF policy on the back end, behind the scenes, there's a mail application called SendGrid. And so any emails that get pushed out by SendGrid, that's okay. Now, let me stop just for a quick second. I realized I probably should have talked about something else too. When you first get into the online business, it might feel a little confusing because the first thing, you get a domain name, so Starr Consulting, and then you should be having a domain email. So that means you pay, whether it's GoDaddy. Sorry, Beth. Beth, she always tells people don't use GoDaddy, but GoDaddy or a bunch of other places that offer email, professional email. Okay. If you're going to have a business, you need a professional email. All right. So whenever I email somebody, it doesn't come from Deb at this is my play around email. It comes from Deb at, had to stop and think, Deb at starrconsulting.net. Okay. That's my professional email. So, I can open up my Outlook. I could go to the web. I could, that's the email individually. If I wanted to send somebody a quick email saying, hey, thanks. It was so nice to meet you at the conference. Let's schedule a meeting, blah, blah, blah. So that's a one-to-one. That's just coming straight from my email system. But then take it up a notch. And now let's say you're growing your email list and you have 200 people on your email list. Now, one, would you want to take the time and cut and paste and like send an email 200 times to these people? No, you're not going to do that. Plus, if if you've got this little trained person sending out these emails, on the receiving end, they're going to say, wait a minute. I don't know who this little Deb at Starr Consulting is, but she's trying to spam a bunch of people. So because of that, we use, I forget the word right now. Beth, maybe you can help me think of the word, but basically we use a custom emailer and like SendGrid. Okay. Mailgun is another one. There's, a few big gun email systems. Yes, an email service that their whole purpose is they push out masses of emails and they're allowed to do that. Okay. So if you, let's say you have Funnel Gorgeous, or let's say you have Go HighLevel, or let's say you have Kartra or Kajabi or any of these other marketing platforms that help you build the funnels and landing pages and all that kind of stuff, usually connected to the back end of that is one of these email systems that's layered on top. All right. Are you following me? So let me know in the comments if this is making sense. So you've got your domain email here and it plugs in to this marketing system that you're using. All right. So depending on which system you use, up to this point, you really didn't have to do anything because, so let's say Go HighLevel or Funnel Gorgeous, they kind of had things in place. But because of all these changes with Yahoo and Google, basically everybody is tightening down the doors. They're locking things up a little bit. Now we have to make some added changes, but we have to change it to kind of like that middleman. Okay. So, I use a couple of different, well, actually I use more than 2 programs because I support my clients and all of these, but Kartra, for instance, I think their back-end mailing system is actually SendGrid. Go HighLevel, I think it's Mailgun, which is really on the back end. All right. So I've kind of gone down into the woods a little bit. If your eyes are glossing over, come back. I'm going to come back out of the woods. Just put in the comments that you're still with me, you're still alive, that you're still getting it. I felt like I needed to explain just a little bit what in the world does this mean? Because originally you might be thinking, well, I've never even heard of SendGrid. I'm not using it. So it's these back-end systems that lock into place to your marketing platform. And that's that little piece that, so when SendGrid pushes out my email from Deb at Starr Consulting, all of the in-between stuff is in place so that the server on the other end will say, okay, they're legit. I'm going to let them come through. All right. Let's take a deep breath. Let's recenter ourselves. All right. So that is an example of the SPF. Sometimes you're using multiple platforms like me. Remember, I said you can only have one SPF record. So in that instance, what you do is you include two. So here, instead of a name, like instead of Kartra, it's saying, okay, I'm using version 1 and it has an IP address. Or normally it will just have the name there. And then we're also saying and include SendGrid. So in this example, there's 2 approved senders for that domain. All right. Did you make it this far? If so, let's have a thumbs up in the comments because you're doing great. So again, don't you feel, I think you should be graduated to a master's degree now at this point, because if you saw this now, hopefully you'll be able to at least kind of understand what it's talking about. Now, with the DMARC, we're not going to get too deep into the woods with this because every system is a little different, but the DMARC is the policy, again, those instructions that get written on the back end. And it basically tells the server, what should we do if we cannot verify this email? Okay. And then it has 3 levels of policies. P equals none, P equals quarantine, P equals reject. Again, before we get too deep into the woods, most people just set it at P equals quarantine. If you had a huge list and you're moving from one platform to another, you might have heard people say you need to warm up the algorithm using this new platform. Then the really, really techie email gurus would tell you, we're going to set it for none for 30 days. Then we're going to set it to quarantine. And then we might set it to reject. Don't worry about it too much. I am just dropping those little seeds in your mind. Don't need to worry about it right now, but there's different policy settings. Okay. So this is what a DMARC policy might look like. That's all we're going to do about it. We're not going to worry about it. I just want you to understand basically how you can first start reading it. So again, the version DMARC 1, the P, the policy set to none up here, meaning deliver all the emails regardless of the verification. So initially out of the gate, that's probably what it would be set at. And then later you would change it to quarantine. All right. Whew. You are doing great. Are you still feeling confused? Again, the purpose of this workshop, and don't run away because I've got some really goodies for you that I think you're going to appreciate here in a second. But you need to at least, I'm all about, you need to understand the big picture, because even if you want to be a completely hands-off with your technology, you need to at least understand it a little bit so that, if somebody else is doing this in the background, one, you can at least ask questions, or if they give you some kind of documentation, you can look at it and think, okay, this looks right. All right. Anyway, I've got a couple of handouts that I'm going to share with you. I'm just going to mention this, and then I'm going to go into something else that I think you're really going to enjoy. So if you need help with this stuff, I have my DBA membership, my Digital Business Academy membership. It's low cost. It's only $47 a month. And in that membership, one of the services is we lift up the hood together of the technology and we kind of work through things. Or if you ever wanted to schedule what I call a VIP tech call, you can set that up and we can just work on some of this stuff together. All right. So, end of commercial. Now, we've got this whole back end thing happening that we have to get into compliance. Here are some really juicy tips for you to get your emails actually into the inbox. All right. So I am going to, if I can find it, let me see. Can you guys, oh, you can see it. Yay. I've got a couple of, you know what? Let me do this first. Let me come back over here for a second. Let me drop this in. Can I drop it into the chat? If somebody wants, Beth, maybe you could do it. Can you grab this URL and drop it into the chat? I'll come back to the screen in a minute. And then everybody can have it. And then I want to show you, and I think I just lost it. Let me find my, once you opt in, there's a couple of goodies that you're going to get. But before you run away and start playing with things, just stick with me for a couple more minutes. And I want to talk about how to get in the inbox more often. All right. Okay. Thanks, Beth, for putting that link in. All right. So if we've been around the block a couple of times, we might be familiar with green eggs and ham, right? So this was I'm just going to whiz through this very quickly, but this was a presentation I had done a long time ago about how to convert leads and create raving fans by using what I call the green eggs and ham protocol. So, the number one thing is, how can I get more leads? And then once you get those leads, how do you turn them into clients? And then how do you turn those people into raving fans? Do not know which way my mouse is going here. Okay. And, just a little plug. I think we all know that email is not dead, regardless of what people say. So you want to continue to build your list, but you also want to have an engaged list. People that read your emails, that they look forward to it, and maybe even tell people, hey, you need to sign up for her email. Okay. So the first problem is how to grow the list. The second problem, how do you cultivate that list? Because the real problem is getting people to actually read your emails. And I just read a stat not too long ago, and I think it was like either 5 or 9 seconds is all people spend on your emails. So they are barely reading it. And that's if it hits the inbox. If it's in the spam folder, a lot of times they don't even see it. So how can you build that know, like, and trust if they're not even seeing your emails? Well, part of it is we have to get those emails out of the spam folder. So here's the juicy part: 9 secrets to spam proof your list. And it all starts with green eggs and ham. So we're going to go back in time and we're going to read a little story together. So how many of you can say this? I am Sam. I am Sam. I am Sam. Sam, I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them. Sam, I am. So I call it my ham protocol. And this is kind of ironic, just a tiny little side note here about me. My maiden name was Ham, Ham, believe it or not. So when I was growing, and my middle name is Starr. So people had fun with my names. Anyway, I digress. So the Ham protocol, the first thing is, are your messages what we would call sticky? So in that story, what message? I mean, we probably heard it 100 times when we were a kid, but what was the message? The message was he did not like green eggs and ham, and wherever he was at. Would you like them in a house? Would you like them in a mouse? I do not like them in a house. I do not like them with a mouse. So the idea is your overarching message. Is it sticky? Can people kind of recite in a sense? Doesn't mean your whole email is about it, but and Andrea, I'm going to highlight her here. She's all about spreadsheets. She has an awesome membership. By the way, I've got a little affiliate link I can drop in here, but there's no question how she helps people, what she does. Her sticky message is spreadsheets and how that can up-level your life. So what sticky messages do you have? Secret number 2, do not give up. Even if you think no one is reading your emails, because what happened in this story, he decided he would start offering his green eggs and ham in different ways. In a house with a mouse, in a box with a fox, right? So don't give up. Excuse me. Even if you don't think people are reading, a lot of times, so I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of when do you purge people from your list. Even if they do not open the email, if they see your name, guess what? Oh, here's the green eggs and ham message again. So they don't have to even read your emails. The third secret, be consistent. Figure out what you can do and be consistent. Can you at least send something to your list once a week? That's all. Even if it's something small. Always stay with your message, but try to be consistent. So the moral of the story is we clearly know what that offer is, the green eggs and ham. Now, why do I call it the ham protocol? Is because your emails should be helpful. They should make them smile. They should be happy. And can we make them hilarious? Because people, when they open the email, they're still working. But if we can bring them a little joy, a little value, they're going to be more inclined to open your email. And can we agitate the problem just a little bit? In other words, bring that awareness up saying, I know you've got this problem and I can help you. And the M is that main message and make it memorable. All right. So that's the ham protocol. So now here's 9 little secrets that I'll share with you to help you keep your emails out of the spam so that you can grow your fan club. Tip number 1, and for those that are in my Digital Business Academy and those that have been in my like Heart-Centered Scale and some of my upper level coaching programs, the one thing that I try to preach to people is the most important email you will ever send is that first email they get after they've opted in. So, it's like that first date. They are so excited because they just gave you something of value and now they want the goods. So what can you do in that email? Because that email, 90% of the time, they're going to open it up because they're anxious for the goods. So train them in the emails. 1, that it's going to be worth their while. Make them smile, give them something extra, train them to take action when they open your emails. Train them to just open your emails. All right. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, engage them early on. All right. So again, you need to train them and also to train the email servers. Okay. So if this is the first time you send out an email, on the receiving end, the server, the gatekeepers, it's like, okay, who is this person sending some emails? So when the person you send to, if they respond back, if they click on links, if they do different things, then the servers are saying, oh, they must be friends. So, okay, we'll let the emails go back and forth. All right. So engage them early on. Tip number 3, ask them, hey, will you whitelist my email? Add me to your contacts. Okay, because once they're in the contacts or once they're whitelisted, then you're going to land in their inbox. Tip number 4, always, always, always have a PS. Because, couple things. 1, remember I said 5 to 9 seconds is all the time people are spending in the emails. People are skimmers, and there's just something about a little PS. It's kind of like, ooh, what's that? And so they're going to drop down and they're going to read that. So a lot of times the PS, I just repeat the main call to action. I try not to have it more than one sentence and even one line if possible, but always have a PS. Tip number 5, people don't like to hear this, but I'm just going to tell you, ugly is better than pretty. All right. Especially when you're first starting out growing your email list. When you have this beautiful email template and you've got your big old header that's very heavy in weight and you've just got all of this stuff, guess what? The servers on the back end, they lift up the hood and you know what they see? They see that glossy magazine that gets sent in the mail that when you bring it in the house, you throw it in the trash. So if you spend a lot of time, you're so proud of how your email looks, especially if it's new to like a new list or warming up somebody new, those servers may just look at it as like, sorry, this is definitely junk mail. Just write plain old text and put lots of white space because again, we're skimmers, we're not readers. Okay. Tip number 6, you can use emotions, you can use little emoticons, but don't use the smiley faces in the subject line. All right. Now, I love using these little icons and stuff, but don't use the smiling face because that's one thing that a lot of the servers have marked that is spam. And in one of the handouts, I give you a list of like 50 spam words not to put in your subject line. And Sandy and Andrea, quite a few people are asking about GIFs and images. Yes. Now, I love GIFs because, again, remember, we want people to be excited when they read our emails. But for new people, so if you have like a welcome series, an opt-in series, something like that, make those first, 2 or 3 at least, just plain old boring text. Then once you kind of roll them over to your normal email, if you put 1 or 2 images inside, that's fine because the email servers are used to talking to each other and they're used to, every time Debbie sends out an email, people open it. All right. I have to say the other day that it is kind of satisfying, depending on which system you use. You can send out an email and you can see the stats in real time. And I sent out an email. It was late at night, and I forget the percentage, but it was like a huge percentage of people. They were already reading my email. I mean, I was very touched. So thank you if you were one of those that right away read my emails. Um, anyway, once you get people warmed up, you can certainly juice it up a little bit by putting the gifts and, you know, images and stuff. But those first few, just have it very plain. The spam words on one of the handouts, I've got a list for you. So obviously, like free, don't put free in the subject line. You know, that right now I'm talking about the subject lines here. I can't think of some of the other ones, but you'll see it on the list. Tip number 8. This still gets me to my heart, even though I say it doesn't. Regular housekeeping. Unsubscribes are actually good. All it means is they're not ready for the genius service that we offer right now. So when somebody unsubscribes, we let them go, and maybe later they'll come back. Just don't take it personally. I still do sometimes, but it's just part of life. And when you think about the billions of people out there, you know, all we need are a few hundred people. So, you know, don't sweat it, because also, you know, if you have this huge list, or not even a huge list, but nobody ever looks at the emails, what good is it anyway? So if you don't have what they need right then, just let them go. Number 9, it's called the 9-word email. It's great for re-engagement. There's, you know, there's different ways of writing this, but basically it's very short to the point, and it sounds like, and it feels like you are writing just to them. So it could be something as simple as, hey, Andrea, are you still interested in creating your welcome email sequence? Something that simple. And you send it off. So when she opens it, it's going to be like, oh, yeah, how did Debbie know that I was just thinking about doing that? But, and most people know that you probably sent it to a bunch of people, but by being so short, very concise, a specific call to action, they can respond back and say, yes, I am, or nope, I'm good. Okay, so that's a great tip that you can do to re-engage your list. Tip number 10, entertain them. Make them feel good. Because when they open their email, they still are in work mode, but they don't want it to be drudgery. Okay. So if you can entertain them, if you can make them feel good, they are going to mentally think, oh, good. I love her emails. I'm going to read every one of them. All right. And that's what we want. So a quick recap. You've kind of had 2 different workshops here. I hope that's okay. The first one was all the techie stuff. And then I thought I better give you something that you can, this is the dessert that we've just gone through. Okay. So what did we learn? The green eggs and ham. So make it memorable. Could people sing our message? Never stop offering what we have. Make offers all the time and make our message consistent. The ham protocol, make our emails happy and helpful, agitate the problem a little bit, and then one main message. And then spam proof your emails. So implement those tips that I just mentioned, and you'll be good to go. All right. So I hope that was good for you. Let me figure out how to come back here to you. Oh, let me bring this one more time. I think Beth put it in the comments. If you're watching on replay, again, here's the link for that to get the goodies. And now, so thank you. if you attended live, if you're catching this on replay, I'm smiling here. Beth, or I'm sorry, Andrea says, "Oh man, I'm doing it all wrong." Oh, Andrea, I love your emails. You're doing great. So I just want to thank everybody. I will come back here and let me come back face to face. So again, thanks for watching. I hope this was fun. Hope it was useful. Again, I'd love to be able to help you. You could join DBA or just reach out and we can set up a time. And let me know in the comments. Let's keep the thread going a little bit for those people that told me that they need to watch it on replay because of time and everything else. And that's all I have for you. So I'll just check the comments.